Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to welcome everyone to the Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform webinar, Collecting and Recycling of Plastics Waste. My name is Astrid Severin and I'm a Thematic Expert for Environment and Resource Efficiency at the Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform. I would also like to welcome my expert colleagues, Magda Michalikova, who is also a Thematic Expert for Environment and Resource Efficiency, and Lotte van Meyel, our communications expert. Hello, nice to meet you all. Before starting, just some housekeeping rules. We are recording this webinar and the recordings will be later available online together with all the presentations and the follow-up article. For any questions, and we hope that you will have many questions, please write in the chat where we will also be posting some useful links and information for you. And last but not least, we would like to have your feedback. At the end, we will have a feedback survey and we would be grateful if you could fill that in. So now you know us already a little bit. We would ask you to answer some polls for us so that we can get to know you a little bit better as well. So our first poll is asking where you are coming from, what is your background, are you a regional local authority, a waste management organization, a company, an NGO, or a European institution or organization. So please let us know. So thank you. Thank you very much for voting. So I think we have quite a nice mix here today from regional local authorities and waste management organizations, but also quite a lot of academia and NGOs. So very good. And the other organizations, yes, it would be nice to know who they are. So if you want, please write in the chat where you're coming from and what organization you're representing. Our next poll is really interested in why you're attending this workshop. Is it because you want to achieve better recycling rates of plastic waste, or you want to reduce plastics waste in the environment? And you have multiple choice here. You can choose several subjects, of course, improve the closed loop treatment of plastics waste, or implement collection schemes. Or are you here to learn about the policy learning platform or to find partners for the future? So multiple choice, you can indicate that. Okay, well, thanks for voting here as well. Yeah, there is interest in all of these different things. I can see quite well spread. So thank you very much. A lot of interest in reducing plastics waste in the environment as well, and achieving better recycling waste rates as expected. So thank you very much. Exceptionally, this time we have a third poll, and we would like to ask you about the deposit return systems, if you have these in your territory. So yes, there is one up and running and it is only single choice, of course, or we have one under development, or no, we don't have it, or you don't know that is also possible, of course. Right. Well, at least 46% are already having a system or have one under development, which is good. 1/4 is still not having a system, and quite a lot of people don't know. So let's see if we can do something about that for the future and give you some inspiration on that. So thank you very much for voting and for letting us know where you're standing. So we have quite an interesting setup today. Sorry, we have quite an interesting setup today and a lot of things to share with you. We will have a keynote presentation from Jack McQuibben. Hello, Jack, to you. We will hear from Eliis and Kerttu-Liina about packaging deposit refund system. We will hear about Hamburg Bottle from Mirko Kruse. And we also have Gregoire Thonier, who is telling us about the financial policy to support the use of recycled plastics. Some short words about Interreg Europe. I'm pretty sure you know it all, but here you go. This is the program under which we're working. We are working in 4 main areas, which are research and innovation, SME competitiveness, low carbon economy, and environment and resource efficiency, the subject under which we are here today. In the programming period, we had 31 projects, which are busy in resource management and circular economy. And today we will hear from 4 of them. They're called Cap on Litter, Replace, Plast Eco, and Interwaste. So the Pew Charitable Trust, together with Systemic in 2020, has been bringing out a very interesting report called Breaking the Plastic Wave. And they have been proposing a systemic change scenario by 2040 compared to the business as usual. And the systemic change combines all the different measures of reduction, substitution, or recycling of plastics waste. With the reduction, we can achieve minus 30% possibly by transiting away from single-use packaging and disposable items. The substitution could lead to another 17% reduction through other known materials, for example, paper or compostable items. And with recycling, we can achieve another 20% reduction. Here we have to, of course, design for recycling, making sure it's the right polymers that are going to be used in the products. And we are not working with multi-layer materials, for example. We have to increase the separate collection rate to have good quality for recycling. And of course, we need to increase the capacity for mechanical and chemical recycling. So the European Union has already put several frameworks in place and paved the way for this approach of a systemic change in with plastics waste. So there is the European strategy for plastics in a circular economy, whereby all plastics should be recyclable by 2030. A reduce in single-use plastics consumption has been proposed, and there's also an intentional use. The intentional use of microplastics should be restricted. You all know certainly the Single-Use Plastics Directive already, which has banned specific single-use plastics product, which we can find mostly on our beaches, for example, and also a collection target for plastic bottles of 90% by 2029. And many other directives and strategies are focusing on plastics waste, such as the European Green Deal, the Zero Pollution Action Plan, the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, and so forth. So if you want to read more about this, please refer to our policy brief called Halting Ocean Plastics Pollution, where there's a lot of feedback and background, but we're also providing you with good practices, policy improvements, and a range of recommendations, as well as where you can get some EU financial report to implement activities in reducing, substituting, and recycling plastics. We have a lot of different examples coming from all our different projects here. So how to reduce packaging waste, cleanup campaigns, closed loop systems, reusable cups, the collection via deposit refund systems or smart bins. And we also, of course, have examples for supporting plastic alternatives in recycled products. So we hope that you get inspired, not only by this policy brief, but also by our webinar here today. So, without further ado, I would like to give the word to Jack McQuibben, who is going to introduce to us some systems on how to better separate plastics, separately collect plastics waste. So, Jack, the word is yours.
Yes, thank you so much, Astrid, and the whole Interreg Europe team for inviting me to speak today. So, yeah, it's a pleasure, and to see so many participants as well. So thank you very much. I will speak about, as Astrid said, the sort of different collection and recycling strategies for plastics waste. Just a caveat, if you're expecting a presentation about state-of-the-art mechanical or chemical recycling treatments, for example, then I'm afraid you might be disappointed, because, as I'm going to highlight, simply the best strategy is to not generate plastics in the first place. So I will focus on that. Apologies in advance. But we are part of, I'm the Zero Waste Cities Program Coordinator at Zero Waste Europe. I will speak about Zero Waste Europe in a second, but we're part of the Interreg Europe Cap on Litter project, which I can speak about more. So Zero Waste Europe, we are a NGO based here in Brussels. We're made up of 31 member organizations in 27 European countries now. Obviously, being based in Brussels, we advocate for ambitious waste circular economy policies. But, and a large chunk of my role is to support our members who work directly with municipalities at the local level. So we're not only advocating for a top-down approach, but we're supporting the transition towards zero waste community after community at the local level. So this is what our Zero Waste Cities program is. As an organization, we work with now over 450 municipalities who've committed to be zero waste. So they're engaged and supported by us and our members throughout Europe in 10 countries now. We do this via a network of local and national coordinators across the continent, who we train and support and guide, and they train and support and guide one another to really work with the municipalities to implement effective zero waste strategies. What we do here in Brussels, we model the best practices, front runners, to really showcase that these zero waste strategies are achievable, they are realistic, they're a tangible set of policies and a framework that can lead to real benefits in a diverse range of contexts. And this is all led by the creation of the world's first Zero Waste Cities certification, which is the most robust sort of framework there is out there as a to-do list, really, to help guide and reward municipalities on their journey towards becoming zero waste. So the topic of today, a very quick reminder on the why. Apologies for the text-heavy slide. I couldn't choose which point to cut, but as we are all aware, plastic production has kept on increasing despite growing awareness of this issue. Estimates reckon that 79% of all the plastic produced remains in landfill or the natural environment, and 12% is incinerated. This is globally, but in Europe, most of the plastic comes in packaging, and packaging is about 36% of municipal solid waste. I think that figure is from 2018. One of the most important things to focus on today is that in the 1st of January 2024, it will be mandatory for all EU member states to collect organics separately, basically. And so what this will have a huge impact, because normally there's a competition for what's found most common in the residuals, so the non-recyclable waste, between plastics and organics. And so with mandatory collection of organics, this is going to really increase, decrease the total volume of residuals, but increase in terms of percentage-wise what that will be of plastic. And if we're thinking about how we dispose of this residual waste, for example, through incineration, this really increases the carbon intensity of such practices. So therefore is incompatible with our future net zero carbon goals as well. We all know, and we're all increasingly aware of the toxic chemicals found in plastic that not only damaging our environment, but our human health as well. But recent sort of life cycle analysis shows that reusable containers have like up to 13 times better environmental footprints, reusable cups 4 times than single-use options. And of course, one of the major problems with plastic is that we're not dealing with it as a whole in Europe. We're often exporting this problem to countries that are much more vulnerable and unable to deal with it. So for example, the example of Malaysia here, so it generates 2.4 million tons of plastic waste and then imports, this is legally 835,000 tons per year, plus on top of the illegal waste that is dumped or shipped there. And so therefore, we've got a 2 million ton discrepancy between what is produced in such a country and imported, versus what is responsibly managed. So it's not a problem just for Europe's borders. And this graph shows that, global plastic waste exports have really risen throughout the past decade. And fortunately, there's now action being taken at the EU, hopefully, to address this, but it's a big issue because of the challenges which I'll speak to now. So firstly, I wanted to break this into the challenges of recycling and plastic. Obviously, Astrid, you mentioned there about the multi-layer nature of plastic. very often our products, so there's no regulation, very little regulation about what can be put on the market. And so products are complex, they contain different polymers, different kinds of plastic, and therefore are very hard, if not impossible, to fully recycle into a closed loop. Very hard to recycle or downcycle really. And so therefore it becomes incompatible with a circular economy. At the moment in Europe, there are limitations on sort of the amount of plastic recycling that can be done. And this needs to change given, as I mentioned just then, future legislative changes in terms of what is going to restrict the amount of plastic waste which can be exported and has been for the past 10 years. There's a big issue regarding bioplastics. We need to differentiate first and foremost between what is bio-based, so made from bioproducts, and then what is so-called biodegradable, what can be sort of composted and given back to the earth. And this is extremely confusing, not only for people that work on this topic like us, but also most importantly for everyday consumers who might be fooled into thinking something is biodegradable, and therefore they put it in their organic waste bin, but in fact biodegradable means it can only be biodegraded at very high temperatures or in certain circumstances that the local composting site doesn't meet. And of course, the final thing to add about recycling is that in the past sort of 5 years or so, the price of virgin plastic has been so cheap because of the low oil prices that therefore there's been not a real incentive to use secondary material, secondary plastic. And so therefore, given all this, it's much easier to continue to pump out single-use plastics and recycle it. Focusing on collection, of course, door-to-door sort of multi-stream separate collection methods is the most proven, effective and cost-effective in particular model for households and businesses. The zero Cs in our network show that you can separately collect 90% of municipal solid waste easily with the right policies and communication. As I mentioned, bioplastics continue to remain very unclear and uncertain. Do they go in the plastics? Do they go in the organics? Do they go in the residual waste? So we need much more clarity and regulation on this. As I mentioned, not all plastic is created equally for different packaging, bottles, materials within plastics. They need different policies, simply put. And so if you're a municipality trying to decide which separate collection model to design to increase plastic collection, it's very tricky, it's very expensive, and therefore it's not really the problem, it's the responsibility of those businesses who continue to put these unrecyclable materials onto the market. And of course, we work via the Cap on Litter project with a lot of municipalities in tourist areas, and there's a large battle against single-use plastics. This has only increased, as we all know, by the pandemic and the battling this myth that single-use items are healthier and safer for us. So simply put, and this is my main takeaway message, it takes less time and it makes much more sense to focus on replacing non-recyclable and hazardous materials with reusable or closely recyclable ones than it does to invest a lot of money and time into building new infrastructure such as millions of pounds worth of millions of euros worth of chemical recycling, which to dispose of stuff which simply shouldn't exist in the first place. So that would be my main message to take home today. But I'm going to focus on some of these best practices to showcase how it can be done effectively. And I believe I'm coming to the end of my time. I've got a couple of minutes, but I just wanted to, showcase, to give you some examples of what can be done effectively to reduce plastics ultimately, but those that can't be reduced to collect and recycle well. So first and foremost is to very simply reduce the availability of single-use plastics. So some cities have introduced total or partial bans on single-use plastic, either within a whole city's border. So for example, the use of Paris aiming to become plastic-free in the next couple of years, or you can follow in the footsteps of places like Barcelona, Tallinn, Vilnius, to name just a few, that have banned the use of single-use plastic in public buildings, events, and spaces as well. But instead making reusable alternatives mandatory or introducing mandatory deposit return schemes. And then supplementing this, municipalities have at their disposal the ability to look at their services and their tenders and the contractors they use via public procurement and really embed criteria that prioritizes reuse and deprioritizes single-use plastic. And the city of Hamburg is a great example of this, that's introduced mandatory green procurement guidelines within all of its sort of public procurement methods. Secondly, introducing reusable options is, of course, a huge priority for cities. quite often. It's to talk about the North Star of a zero waste strategy or reuse strategy, setting targets. It really helps to galvanize action. It mobilizes stakeholders. It gives citizens, the confidence that the city is really sort of taking this seriously. In the region of Flanders here in Belgium, for example, is a reuse target of 7 kilograms of material per capita a year by this year, the end of this year as well. So this kind of target sets the framework for which all other actions can follow. There is a great example of refill. I've mentioned here in the UK, it's organized by an organization called City to Sea, but it's expanding to Europe. And that is a sticker, and then municipalities are showing it for their support, and businesses where people can fill up their refillable bottles with tap water. And this is huge, tackles single-use bottles made of plastic. Municipalities can introduce financial incentives and technical guidance to really help grow packaging-free shops, and so people can bring their reusable boxes, Tupperware, also refillable containers for liquids and cleaning products, which again has a huge impact for waste reduction, particularly of plastics. And there's examples here of the Unverpackt store in Germany, or the company Jean Boutel across France and across much of Europe now, which is expanding rapidly. And key message to highlight for cities is to engage with the community, to make it educational and fun, to really bring the whole sort of stakeholder group within a community on board with you. For example, in Capanari, which is the first zero waste city in Europe, they very recently did a zero waste family challenge with families in the city, and they managed, with the right support, each person produced an average residual waste. This is 12 months, 3.8 kilograms, compared to the city's average of 87 kilograms. So it shows with intense support, vast impact can be had. Astrid, you mentioned this, it was one of the first poll, or the third poll, I believe. Deposit return schemes are the most proven methodology for achieving results. And you mentioned there the Single-Use Plastics Directive requires 90% collection of bottles by 2029. Deposit return schemes are the only way this is going to be achieved, because they are high quality, they really prioritize reuse as well. So not just focusing on recycling, but they can cover, start with coffee cups, food and beverage packaging is being successfully done, but it could be on a wide range of items and materials as well, to really build and embed this reuse culture. And the key thing about DRS is to make it as convenient and accessible as possible for citizens. And so, for example, here, there's the Billy Cup, which is a coffee cup movement here, and this is an example of Brussels where they can be found. So making this information easily accessible on the website. But then in the case where sometimes deposit return schemes, which are most impactful at the national level, where there's sort of stronger borders, many cities and regions have introduced sort of guidance and support where they can to trial or to pilot DRS. This is in the case of the Schleswig-Holstein region in Germany. And finally, I think the key thing is to ensure when you're talking about reuse, you need to get the right collection for recycling, but also collection of reusable materials. And when you're designing a sort of a recycling center or a reuse center, or in a sort of an eco hub, for example, as they're very often called, for example, something small, like when citizens first walk in, offer them the reuse bins first rather than recycling. Just small steps like that help prioritize reuse over recycling. As I mentioned, door to door, so separately collecting key waste streams from households is the most proven methodology. The country of Wales has implemented this for the blueprint collection model, and it's now achieved a 65% recycling rate nationally in 2020, so in the highest in the world. And of course, this is supplemented by drop-off centres and collection centres for those items which cannot be picked up at the household. Pay-as-you-throw schemes, so basically encouraging economic incentives to really encourage citizens to reduce their waste and give them tax rebates or discounts for the households which produce the least waste is a really important tool at the disposal of municipalities. And as I mentioned before, there's some great examples here from the Netherlands, Germany, and Czech Republic about where if you invest in quality collection points and site points where people can bring their reusable items, it really ensures not only you're increasing the volume of reusable materials that are collected, but that the quality as well. So small things like making sure that if they're left out overnight, they're covered and they're not sort of subject to pollution or rain, just means that the quality of the material will be kept and therefore will be much more likely to be sold on and to reused. And finally, I've mentioned before, organics is the key thing, particularly for plastics. Separately collecting organics means that if plastics in particular is a much they're cleaner, less contaminated, and therefore much easier to recycle or to reuse. And so, the example of Milan shows that you can really have an effective organic system, even in the most densely populated, multicultural cities in Europe as well. And these are just two items. I think the PowerPoints can be shared afterwards because there's links to these that just go into more detail about the best practices available for municipalities to really sort of reuse, if not recycle and collect properly to reduce the amount of plastic waste in the local area. So I think that's me done. Thank you very much. I've gone a little bit over time. Sorry, Astrid, but yeah, looking forward to the rest of the presentations and the Q&A at the end.
Thank you very much, Jack, for your really great presentation and for sharing all these examples with us. We have also posted an enormous amount of links to the different, different good practices and examples that you have been mentioning. I have one question to you, which is relating to the target of product design. Do you think it's realistic that all plastics are going to be recyclable by 2030? I mean, plastic packaging?
That's a good question to open with. I hope. Do I think it's realistic? Sometimes it depends what side of the bed I wake up on. But if we take action now, of course, yes. But if we sort of stumble, if there's not the right regulations set in place at the European level to force companies and businesses to do this, then no, it's not going to be achievable in the next 8 years. But it needs to be, and so therefore we need action. European level to set regulations. National governments need to sort of transpose this ambitiously. We've seen this with the Single-Use Plastics Directive. The kind of difference in how national governments have interpreted this, and the difference of ambition as well. So therefore, and we also need action at the local level, cities sort of showcasing how these reuse models can be done effectively, how to work compatibly with waste management companies, with different businesses and companies to ensure that if the item can't be reused, it can be cleanly recycled effectively as well. So, and this is what our zero waste cities do. It's a key philosophy is to analyze the residual waste, and therefore you can get that data and knowledge to say, okay, what packaging items don't remain recyclable, and therefore you can sort of use this data to say, okay, it's 20-30% of our residual waste, or it's one specific brand or item that you keep finding again. You can use that to make to reach out to such companies and to try to really take action as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think there's a lot of things already going on. As far as I can see, for example, the yogurt is now coming with a paper around you can take off, and you only have one type of plastic, which you still have to recycle. So things are starting very good. We have I think, a little bit complicated question here. I will ask you, but maybe any other of the panelists can answer. If not, then we will come back later in writing. So the question is, many companies are currently looking towards redesigning plastics. What regulations are in place to accommodate this? And if there are regulations, is there any limit or content of recycled materials required? Are there testing methods implemented already? It's in the chat, it's from Michael Oneppe. So I don't know, is that country by country? Is that European-wide? Are there already such regulations? Would you know?
Not as much as other colleagues of mine would know, but I think basically there is some sort of key legislation at the EU level that touch upon this, but to me the challenge, they need to be revised and are in the process of being revised. So I think there is the Packaging and Packaging Waste Directive, which sort of sets targets for the amount of recyclable materials that must be put onto the market. There is the Eco-Design Directive from the Commission, which I think whereas the Packaging Waste Directive is currently starting to be revised this year, with the Waste Framework Directive. Eco-Design Directive is a couple of years away from that. There's a Single-Use Plastic Directive. So it doesn't all fit in one at the moment. It's kind of sort of different policies in different areas, which again, try to come together, I think, by the plastic strategy set by the previous Commission at the European level. So there is some. It's not ambitious enough for sure. I think there's minimum requirements for recyclable content is quite low, particularly from what we need, and therefore the new amendment of the Packaging Waste Directive this year is a real important landmark. And I would actively encourage anyone on this call who has sort of links to the Commission. Those are sort of in consultation, going to sort of really share their thoughts and their opinions about what they'd like to see. Because the opportunity and to really have your voice heard is now and in the next sort of 6 months as well.
Thank you. And Michael, we will look into this a little bit more and let you know also in writing what we have found out. I will ask you for one more answer to one more question, and then we go to the next presentation. The question is from Loes Wemels. How can the EU motivate producers to put more reusable packaging on the market or to reduce the amount of packaging?
There's a difference between motivate and force or require. I think so. There's the legislation which would say that every sort of item that goes into the single market in the EU must be made up of X amount of recyclable material. It must be reusable. It must not contain these harmful chemicals. And so that would motivate, or it would force companies to ensure that their products are safe, they're recyclable, or that if not reusable, refillable. If that doesn't come, then local municipalities can really sort of set up incentives, economic incentives, to showcase that citizens, want this, they're prioritizing reusable and refillable options, or that, national governments as well have a responsibility with EPR schemes. We haven't spoke about it yet, but they're an effective tool for helping this. There are some good examples, but some sort of struggles in Europe. I think it really varies from country to country. I'm not sure if we'll touch upon it in other presentations. So that's a really important tool as well to ensure that, it's the producers who continue to put non-recyclable materials onto the market are responsible for the cleanup of these items and the costs of all the processes as well. So there are various tools at disposal if you want to go at the European, national or local level to motivate or to force.
Again, we can put some ideas in writing back to you, Loes, and let you know. And indeed, EPR schemes are a very interesting subject, which you should maybe tackle in the future. So thank you very much, Jack, also for already answering a lot of questions. Let me just say one thing is that there are questions if we can share the links that are all posted in the chat, and we will put a document together with all the links so you can easily access them and see all the examples that are being posted. So with this, I would like to go right away into some good practices that are coming from Interreg Europe projects. And we want to start with Eliis and Kerttu-Liina, which are going to present to us the packaging deposit refund system in Estonia and what the results of the systems are. So we're really looking forward to this presentation. So the word is first to Eliis and then to Kerttu-Liina. Please go ahead.
Yes, hello everybody, and thanks for inviting us in here. I tell very shortly that since 2005 in Estonia and in Tallinn, we have this packaging deposit refund system. And since today, it is very well working and efficient. And we also represented this in our Interwaste project as one separate collection system. And as Kerttu-Liina is the representative in this refund system organization, I'll give a word to her, and she will tell you how good this system really is.
Thank you, Eliis, for this nice introduction. So here we go.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction, Eliis. So my name is Kerttu-Liina Urke. I'm coming from the Estonian beverage package deposit system, and I'm working here as office and communications manager, and I have done the work the last 10 years. First of all, what is Eesti pandipakend in Estonian? The translation I already offered you, but basically we are a producer responsibility organization, and we are administrating the national system of deposit subjected packagings. We are working on non-profit principle, which is very important when we speak about deposit systems, and our owners are 4 different associations. One of them is Retailers Association. Behind of this association, we see 85% of the retailers market, and the other 3 owners are producers. So when we established the system in 2005, then the situation was kind of interesting. We became like member of the EU, and we understood that we have to change our policies and we have to achieve like higher recycling rates. And we didn't know exactly how to do it. And then there were like offers on the table. One of the offers was that producers themselves think something out, what can work. Or the other option was that when the producers who are selling the beverage packagings do not want to take the responsibility for these packagings, then country kind of like punish them with the packaging excises. And when this theme came on the table, then retailers and producers found the common language to solve the problem, and then Estonian deposit system was established. And each of these associations, as I told you, 3 producers association, one of the retailers association, each of them belongs 25% of the Estonian deposit system. And we are accredited by the Ministry of Environment. It happened in 2005 in March, and we started with the system 2 months later in May. And we are following the packaging law. So the country do not own us or something, but we are following the law, and we are very like correct about that and connected with these regulations. When we speak about the challenges, then our main challenge or the target is fulfill the recycling rates. And you can see on the right column, which are the minimum requirements by the excises law. We have to fulfill them, and we have done it all the years during the last 16 years when the system has worked. We have had never problems fulfilling them. And on the left column, you can also see this year's numbers or percentages, what we have been achieved and what we achieved year before. Yeah, we are speaking about the numbers 2021 and 2020. Under the deposit system, we have different materials. We have PET, we have can, and also one-way glass. But today I'm concentrating my talk only to the plastic beverages, because this is the main target of this seminar. And during the 16 years, we have collected more than 4.5 million deposit packages. Maybe some of the bigger countries are thinking right now, but this is not a very big number. But we have to understand that the Estonian population is only 1.3 million. So for us, it's a huge and very, very good result. Generally, I can say that 9 bottles from 10 are coming back to the system. So only 1 bottle is kind of getting lost in some reasons. The reasons can be that the consumer do not want to return it to the collection points, or they just break the label, for example, that the RVMs can't read the barcode anymore and so on. But this percentage is like a really, really low one. And other challenges. In the deposit system, we have to work all the time with our stakeholders. And who are our stakeholders? They are mainly producers and importers who are also our owners, as I told you before, and the retailers. We have to communicate with them, explain them all the time why we are doing something, what we are doing, why it's important, how do we recycle all of these packages and plastic packagings. And also like consumers are a very like important part of the public awareness where we are working. Producers are paying us industry fee per packages, and we are also covering with these industry fees the retailers' compensation. So the logic is that the collection points belong to the retailers. Retailers have the collection points like network. So they have costs, of course, connected with that. They buy the RVMs, they are taking care of the personnel over there and so on. So industry fee is one of the measures with what we are covering the retailers' compensation. But of course, we are covering the system costs with the selling the material, what we are collecting, and also with unrefunded deposits. But this amount of money is also like really, really small one. We can't cover all the costs with this one. And of course, the sales price, when we speak about the plastics, especially, then these are also like affecting our income. It's going some years up, some years it's down. And because of that, we have decided that we will use in the near future higher industry fee for colorful PT, because the material prices on the markets are lower for such kind of PT type. And the industry fee for the transparent PT will be lower. So this is the near future policies, what we are hoping to achieve soon. And of course, we have another method how we try to, convince or motivate retailers to be more environmentally friendly, that our like retailers' compensation is higher for the PT packages, which are compressed together by the RVMs. It's very, very important, because otherwise we are just driving around with the logistical partners or with the trucks, which are just carrying inside air. So we do not want to get uncompressed PT bottles in our recycling handling center. And we are preferring when they are coming in with as a compressed together. So yeah, this is also one of the methods how we can motivate the retailers. And also we have such kind of rule that we accept in the system only PT plastic type. There was also like a question that can we recycle all the plastics in the year 2030, and we are already like avoiding this problem to ourselves. And from the beginning of the deposit system, we decided that we accept only the PT plastic types. I have also like example over here. I don't know, do you see very well it from the video, but this is like recyclers like Nightmare. It contains like two different materials. The cap is made from aluminium and the body is made from PT plastic. And we try to avoid such kind of like beverage packagings in our system, because they are not well recyclable. And we can already decide it, what kind of packages we are allowing in the system. And producers are following very well our rules.
Can you please come to a conclusion, please, Kerttu-Liina?
Oh, okay. Then I just go to the next slide, because we had also like one of the myths that connected with the plastic bottles, that consumers are thinking that they have to remove the caps before they are returning the bottle, but actually it's part of the packagings, and that the packaging law in Estonia is also saying that you can return all of these bottles together with the caps. Public awareness, I spoke about that already. It's also important to speak that we can make new bottles from the old PT bottles, that is kind of like closed loop. Back in time, we spoke inner communications that we can also use PET bottles making like textile and so on, but actually it's not relevant anymore. We should speak about this, that we are making new bottles from that. And one of the policy change what happened this year in May was that now strong alcoholic beverage packages are also in the system voluntarily. Before producers didn't have any kind of possibility to bring them in the system. And yeah, in the below you can see what kind of drink categories were under the deposit system before that. And here provides kind of like inspiration for some of the countries that this map is not green. These are the countries who are using already the deposit system, but there are a lot of countries who are thinking about that. And I know that Slovakia is one of the countries who started with their deposit system in 1st of January this year. And the second one is Latvia, who will be also colored here soon, who started with their system in 1st February, so a few days ago. But we hope to see that soon this map will be like more colorful. And I think that Portugal and Turkey should be also think about that very, very seriously. This is my last slide. It's also connected with the deposit system, but this is totally a new service what we brought on the market, how to avoid single-use plastic cups or dishes, for example. So yeah, we brought such kind of service as deposit cup on the market. It's basically renting service for the event organizers that they can quit from single-use cups and reduce less like plastic pollution. So yeah, we will see how it goes, but we have worked with that the last 3 years now. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think this very successful system is very impressive to see how much you're catching back, and also thank you for showing the map and the potential that there is for more deposit systems. We have already one question for you. I think partly you have already answered it in your presentation, but for your system in Estonia, have you also been looking at expanding the range of packaging types in the DRS and glass jars? I think you mentioned you do this already, and you have just enlarged it for alcoholic beverages or strong alcoholic beverages. The question also goes for HTPE or maybe even Tetra Pak. So that's for you.
Yeah. First of all, as I told you, the strong alcoholic beverages are now included in the system voluntarily. The producers can decide, do they want to bring the bottles in the system or no? In the near future, probably it will be like mandatory. I mean, they don't have any more the choice that do they want to be part of the system or no, they just will be. This will be the future, how we probably change the packaging law. But speaking about the food packagings, for example, we don't see perspective in this at all. And Tetra Pak is also kind of like very complicated packaging. As you all know, there's different like materials inside, and there are some really big questions. How can we recycle them?
Thank you, Kerttu-Liina. I have done some research into Tetra Pak, and apparently it's not so difficult to recycle them. We just don't have enough recycling capacity. But they can be recycled extremely well. The paper and also the plastic is inside. So yeah, there is the question of the recycling capacity again. Do we have more questions to Kerttu-Liina? I don't see anything in the chat. Maybe from other panelists. I don't know. Otherwise, in the meantime, while you're still thinking about a good question, do you think the system is only working at a national basis, or can, for example, also islands use this, because they are a closed system, kind of?
But there are already like examples, like Iceland is already using the deposit system. So it's totally like possible. It doesn't mean that you can't do it there. We already have the examples.
Thank you. And you don't have issues with cross-border people bringing in beverages which are not bought in Estonia. Is that an issue for you?
It was an issue for us some years ago because we had this border trading between Latvia and Estonia. But the reason why it happened, it was different. I mean, it came from the alcohol excises, what the government decided to change, and then all the Estonians just went to buy the drinks in Latvia. But yeah, there are like very simple solutions for that. You can just use the country-based part codes for the beverage packagings, and then this problem is solved. That you can't return these packages to the other countries or the neighbors like collection points.
Thank you. There is a question from Daniel Correa asking, do you use money incentives for the deposit system?
Yes, the deposit value is 10 cents per packaging.
There was 10, I didn't hear very well.
10 cents, yeah, 10 cents per packaging.
Thank you. Good. Any of the panelists has a question for you? If that's not the case at the moment, please use this opportunity. It's a very good system that is working for a long time. They are very successful. So if you have questions how to introduce such a system, don't be shy and ask a question. It's a good moment now to do so. In the meantime, I think we go now to our next presenter. We're going to Hamburg. We're staying in the north and we hear from Mirko Kruse about Hamburg Bottle. So how have they introduced a closed loop system of plastics for making this bottle? So Mirko, the word is yours.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the kind introduction and also for the opportunity to present here. As already mentioned, my name is Mirko Kruse. I'm working for the Hamburg Institute of International Economics. And I'd like to talk about the Hamburg Bottle, which is a completely local example compared to the national one we've just heard about. First, some words about Hamburg. It's the second largest city in Germany, 1.8 million inhabitants. It's an independent federal state, so Hamburg has some more regulatory power compared to other independent cities. And Hamburg has some history in being sustainable. Among others, has been declared European Green Capital in 2011. Talking about the circular economy, we see that there are some reasons why the circular economy is a good idea. And one of them is it's particularly relevant for urban areas, since we have a critical mass of consumers, of producers, and of products and goods being handled here. And this is even more true if we look at the waste statistics in Hamburg. We see that household waste and commercial waste over the last years is increasing, steadily increasing. Sometimes it's gone down, but the overall trend is going upwards, which is, of course, due to the fact that Hamburg as a city is growing and there are more inhabitants, and we have a relative decoupling, but not an absolute one. And when we look at plastic waste, we see some success story in plastic waste from companies. So the commercial waste is going down. But looking at household plastic waste, we're relatively flat. And of course, looking at recycling of plastics, that's not an easy issue, since there are different kinds of plastics. You all know about black plastics and plastics from packaging, which still have rest of food in them, have to be cleaned afterwards. It's really, really complicated to recycle plastics in a good way. And when we're talking about recycling of plastics, it's mostly downcycling. And this is the situation where the whole idea for the Hamburg Bottle kicked in, when individuals from the company Unilever, the international company, and Stadtreinigung, which is the local cleaning company from Hamburg, met at a networking event and asked themselves, what can we do together, which is the common denominator for us? How can we use this situation and make something out of it? And the idea was to make a complete product, not only parts of it, to establish a regional cycle for one kind of plastics. And what they chose was polyethylene. and to prove that regional circular economy, that regional loops actually can work and can be a business case. And what they developed was the example that we now talk about as Hamburg Bottle, or in German Hamburg Flasche, which looks like this. And the Hamburg Bottle is a new packaging for an already existing product. So it's a detergent, a cleaning product offered by Unilever, and received a new packaging. And this packaging is made 100% from plastic waste, gathered, collected, sorted, and processed in Hamburg. So it's kind of a regional cycle established here. And the idea was not to make something like greenwashing or introduce something so that you have a new marketing opportunity, but to learn about how to set up such a regional cycle could work. How can we learn from that, and how can others maybe benefit also from this example? I've already mentioned the partners. It started with Unilever and Stadtreinigung, so the cleaning company. And when they discussed which other partners they would need for such a project, they introduced a recycling company, a retailer, and also some scientific assistance. And basically all steps of the value chain of this product, of this detergent, of this packaging are addressed by the project partners. So there's Stadtreinigung, which collects the plastic waste in Hamburg. There's Veolia as a recycling company who cleans the waste, who collects and sorts the waste and extrudes the high density polyethylene and makes it a usable raw material for later use. Unilever, which produces on the one hand the packaging, and on the other hand the detergent brand itself. We have Bundikowski, which is a local retailer, also only active in Hamburg, and you can only buy this packaging in Hamburg. And afterwards, when you dispose it again to the general waste, it will be used for new packaging. And there's scientific assistance coming from the Technical University of Hamburg, doing extensive tests and examinations, how to optimize the sorting process and the recycling process. And what has to be mentioned, because I'm sure there would be a question, it's not a deposit scheme. So it's not you get one bottle, you give it back, and this bottle will be used one-to-one for another one. But all the bottles afterwards, when they are disposed, they enter the general plastic waste stream in Hamburg, and this general waste stream is then used to extract new high-density polyethylene. So it's not a completely closed loop, but it's relatively close to that. And also to mention, of course, we have this deposit scheme already for beverages in Germany for different kind of plastics. And the idea was to try something new, not going for another kind of deposit scheme and separated waste streams, but trying to see waste and plastic waste as a waste stream in itself and as a resource, and try to make something out of the already existing situation that we have. Talking about the benefits, of course, it's about active consumers and giving them the choice to really include circularity and regional loops in their buying decision. It's about visibility, that consumption and recycling can work on a local basis. You can really see and touch the benefit of that. It's about improving the sorting behavior, of course, which is already relatively good in Germany, but the whole situation, the whole concept only works. The packaging is sorted and disposed in the right way afterwards. And it's about creating a demand and also the supply of this recycled high-density polyethylene. So before there wasn't really a demand for that, there wasn't really a supply for that, and the project changes both sides of this. It's of course about convenience. You don't have to see any specific retailers for that, so you can adjust your usual buying decision, include your support for circularity. We have relatively high numbers already of bottles produced, of 5 to 6 million per year, which is significant, I would say. The PROTS project has received a sustainability award, and it has attracted some serious amount of interest from local companies, from local retailers, but also from regional and national companies and stakeholders who asked, how could we try to implement a comparable approach? How can we set in there? Because the idea is quite interesting for many of them. And of course, this is not the only activity in Hamburg which is conducted on plastic waste reduction and recycling. Right now, the project is in a phase of being discussed how to scale up, which kind of adaptations might be needed, how to transfer it also to other locations. It's kind of open source, so the project partners are open for other locations who are interested in that. But of course, the regulatory aspect on local, regional, national, European level is also relatively important for that. So we still need the power and the change coming from the European Union. And coming back to the Replace project in Interreg Europe, we're also right now in a phase of technology transfer. We're talking about good practices in other locations and what we can learn from each other. Right now we're talking with the province of Friesland in the Netherlands and the province of Central in Portugal, and asking ourselves what we can learn from them, what they can learn from us. And it's still an ongoing learning process for all of us. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mirko, for presenting this and also for sharing with us that there is already a lot of interest also from other regions with other players. My first question would be so how has it been, for example, with Unilever? Have they thought about implementing this in other places as well? I mean, who gives the kickoff for such a project? Is that coming from the bottle producer or is it coming from the retailers? How is it working?
The initial idea to introduce this project came from individuals meeting at a networking event. So it was the local representatives of Unilever working in Hamburg in northern Germany who asked themselves, what could we do in our region to really improve the whole situation? And of course, this is totally in line with the Unilever company policy of reducing waste and making all products from reusable or recyclable or biodegradable material. So when they introduced the idea they had to the company board, they were totally convinced and asked themselves, yeah, well, if it works in Hamburg, maybe it also works in another location. But I'm not sure whether Unilever has thought about the scale up already, but at least the project is so successful that it might also be transferred.
Very good, that sounds excellent. So we have one question from Cecilia who asks, so does the project cover only non-food grade PET products? Thank you.
Yeah, as I tried to explain, the raw material for producing these packages is taken from the general plastic waste, which is collected in Hamburg. So there's all different kind of plastics, and there are sorting procedures trying to take that kind of plastics that you need for producing these packages, so these high density polyethylene. as far as I know, this is the only kind of plastics which is individually taken up from the plastic waste in Hamburg. But this project shows that plastic waste is not something you have to get rid of, but it's a source of material that you can use if you have the right technique, if you have an idea what to make out of it. And this is an example how to deal with waste, which we now see as something to get rid of, but to see it more as a source of new products and new wealth being created.
Thank you, Mirko. So I have also another question. Is regarding the color of the bottle. It's gray. I mean, I haven't seen the bottle, unfortunately, but it's sort of grayish. Is that an issue for the consumers? And is it an issue for recycling later? Because sometimes the gray colors or black colors are not very well recognized in the recycling systems.
Yeah, I'd say producing a detergent brand is relatively easy because the plastic is never transparent. So to produce transparent plastics, you really need a really high quality of plastics and only a certain kind of plastics, and it's really hard to recycle that in a good way. So it was easier to go for plastics where it is okay if it's kind of grayish, not completely transparent. And the product as we see it right now is perfectly recyclable, as being stated by the experts who know more about recycling and the technical and chemical processes than I do. So if they tell me it's working perfectly, then I'd say it does.
Perfect. I believe you. I think it's really a problem with black plastic because they cannot see which kind of plastic it is or something in the optical sorters. So there's also a point for design for recycling, so that the color. That's why I was been asking. So it's good to know. Now maybe an idea for the colored plastics in Estland. So we have here another question where they say the plastic is only PET, so it's high density polyethylene. Yeah, if I'm correct.
Yes, exactly.
Because PET is polyethylene tetra something. I'm sorry. It's a little bit different. It's not exactly the same. Okay, well, thank you very much, Mirko. I think this is a very good example, and I'm pleased to hear that this can also be transferred to other locations, and you don't think it's very difficult to transfer. This is excellent. So I hope lots of people are getting inspiration for this local initiative. Yeah, exactly. So thank you very much for this. Now we go to France. We have Gregoire Thonier who is with us, and we're really happy because he's going to present us a financial policy to support the use of recycled plastic. So somebody has been asking for incentives or similar things. Gregoire, the word is yours, and we'll look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting us to present this good practice. I'm working from RAI in France. We are a regional agency for energy and environment in Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes region in France. And we are part of the Plastico project on which we work on, among other things, financial policy to support the use of recycled plastic. So in France, we have quite of a paradox because we are really ambitious about the targets, about reaching 100% of recycling of plastics in 2025. And on the other hand, we are one of the worst students in France with the current rate of recycling of plastic, which is around 20%. So that's quite a big gap to meet in only 3 years. And that's why we have very many financial supports throughout the whole recycling chain of plastic production and collection and recycling. So I provided you an overview of the most relevant financial supports at national and a few at regional levels. So if you look at the left of the wheel, you will see two support about collection and recycling of plastic waste. Because when we speak about collection, we have one of the most ambitious one is about having the deployment of selective sorting of household in plastic also plastic packaging, because at the moment not all household plastic packaging are being collected, and that should be the case within the next year. So we need to adapt, of course, the sorting plans to be able to recycle and to sort all these different kind of plastics. So there is also financial support to modernize these sorting plans. Then when we look about the recycling of plastic waste, we have one financial support which is called Orplast, and you can see both for recycling and production of plastic goods. So the first part of Orplast is for Orplast regeneration, and it's financial support for recyclers. As you can see, it's about support feasibility studies and tests, and also investments. Then when you have produce recycled plastic, you need to use it. And the idea of financial support in France is both to have financial support to push the production of recycled plastic and to have financial support to pull the use of recycled plastic. That's what you can see on the right of the picture about our plastic incorporation support system, which supports also feasibility studies and tests, and investment to incorporate new or further amounts of recycled plastic. And also there are possibilities to have financial support by contractors and end users. And also you have a support for the use and the substitution about of single-use plastic packaging. We discussed that with other speakers a few minutes ago about what industrial can do. So in France, you know, they can have financial support to think about what can be improved in terms of reducing the amount of plastic packaging or changing plastic packaging through another type of packaging, which is also recyclable. And then we have developed with our Plastico project two aspects, regional aspects. One is about developing a regional observatory to assess plastic waste production within the plastic industry sector, because household plastic represents around 40% of total plastic in France, which means that 60% is about industrial and tertiary sector. And industrial sector produce both high amount of plastic and very specific amount of plastic depending on the kind of industry we are talking about. So it's really important to get to know this type of waste to be able to develop specific collection and recycling plans and pathways. That's the ambition of this regional observatory, and it's an ongoing regional policy. The other ongoing regional policy is about consumer final products, and more specifically, it deals with green public procurement and to make sure that collectivities can adapt and develop strategies to focus on plastic goods with higher amount of recycled plastic. And it's really also a challenge that will be addressed within the action plan of the Plastico project. So Next, I want to focus about one of these, and I choose to focus on the Plus incorporation financial incentive. So you already understood the objective of it. It's to increase the recycling of plastic waste by increasing the demand. So it's about pulling the market. The way it functions is with periodical call for projects. So far, we are in the middle of the third call for projects. First one was in 2016, second one was in 2018, and as I said, the third was started at the end of 2021, and it will continue until the end of 2022. It's managed by the French Agency for Ecological Transition, it's called ADEME, and it provides financial support between 35 to 70% of the total amount invested, depending of the type of if it's test feasibility studies or investment, and also depending on the size of the company. Of course, the smaller the company, the higher amount of financial support you can get. And of course, to make sure that this financial support is not used, let's say, on a project we will not be in line with national and European strategy. There are, of course, eligibility criteria. One of the most important one is about the fact that the plastic polymers used in the process must be recyclable themselves. And I provided a small picture about a much bigger one, which is provided within the call for projects to know which one are eligible in terms of plastic polymers.
You have 3 minutes, please.
Yeah, sure. So as you can see, the two first call for projects in 2016 and 2018 were about 100 projects selected for 26 million euros invested. And for the third full project, it's about 140 million euros of budget. So far, only 150 projects were selected. So we are really far from having used the whole budget, and many more projects should be submitted to be able to use the whole amount which is available. So there is a significant, let's say, work from ADEME to find relevant projects. What is about transferability and results? So transferability depends, of course, of having the money and having the national or regional policy to use that money to finance this kind of project. And of course, having the people to be able to follow this project and to select as the good qualitative projects. In terms of feedback, the results are quite mixed because several projects were abandoned because there is difficulty to confirm the impact of the project after the company receives the money, because of course they're a private company, so they are really reluctant to speak and to produce data about their industrial project. So it's difficult to get feedback from that. But on the other hand, we already know that many amounts of recycled plastic have been produced, and it improves competitiveness and job creation. And my last slide will be about one specific project developed by Barbier Group in her region within the first call for projects. They have been able, through this project, to increase by 7,000 tons the use of recycled plastic, reaching from 16% to 22% of recycled plastic. And they also intend to apply for the third call for project to be able to reach 30 and 40% within 2030 of recycled plastic within their different types of plastics they are producing. And I provided you a few pictures to see what kind of plastic we are dealing within this company. Thank you very much. I remain open for any questions.
Thank you very much, Gregoire, for presenting us. I think you have a very ambitious target. So how do you think you can motivate everybody to work together so fast, including the citizens, the industry? I mean, you have been presenting a very good financial tool here, which exists for a long time already, if I understand well. So how do you think you're going to manage this very fast transition by 2025?
Well, obviously, the target won't be reached within the timing schedule. It's not a surprise, but we have to go much faster. How to do that? Well, there are actually a new batch of legislation which are under submission to make it go much faster regarding plastic household. Because we are behind the schedule. At the moment in France, it's quite difficult for people to sort plastic because the way of sorting plastic depends on which region of France you are living in. And so it's very confusing for people. That's why there is a need for harmonization of sorting practice in households. And it should be done much faster, and that's why there is a new legislation about that. And of course, much money should be implemented within sorting plants. The main issue we have is the European paradox. We want to go faster about recycling plastic, but on the other hand, we say that we don't want any more plastic to be used. With the end of single-use plastic directive and many more strategies which are about stopping to use plastic and replacing plastic by other kind of packaging. So when you discuss about recyclers, they ask you, why should I invest millions about new technologies for waste which won't be there in the next 20 years? And that's actually a good question. So
thank you, Gregoire. I think that is that would be a subject for a completely new webinar if we are starting to do this. I have two short questions, one for Mirko, one for Gregoire, from Florian Solder, who wants to ask, so did he understand correctly, Mirko, that it's only HDPE in the Hamburg bottle and no PET? Maybe yes or no? Yes, he understood correctly. And for you, Gregoire, why is PVC not supported? Because it seems to be recyclable material. Just a very short question. Answer, please.
I don't know, to be honest. And I presented you only, I don't know the full, the extended list of resins which are supported. So I cannot be sure. I will check more carefully and come back with written answer.
Thank you very much, Gregoire. So thank you for all the speakers to come back to a little panel. I think we have had some very interesting feedback here. I would like to ask each of you to just say what are the three main recommendations that you would have for regions and municipalities if they want to start similar projects that you have been presenting, or how to tackle the plastic challenge. So maybe I can start with Mirko.
It's relatively complicated to make 3 points out of it. I would say talk to each other. So the whole project of the Hamburg Bottle came from individuals meeting each other, talking about what we could do from our point of view, what can we make of the situation. And that's one of the main points. Talk with the stakeholders, allow for networking, and bring the interesting people together. The second one, you don't have to change the whole system. You don't have to change the whole world. Also, a small idea can make a tremendous success if you just get started with something. And the third is remain open for criticism and new ideas. So it's not the perfect project which is developed right now, but it's an ongoing learning process, and open for new ideas from external ideas. Remain open for that.
Thank you. I think that's already excellent. Thank you very much for summing it up. So don't change the whole world, but start somewhere. When it comes to tree planting, they say stop talking, start planting. I think that's a very good slogan. Maybe I can go to the ladies from Estonia. Maybe Eliis or Kerttu-Liina. What are your recommendations?
Yeah, this part of the stakeholders was or were already like mentioned, but basically, yeah, it's very important to build the public awareness and understanding about the plastic beverage packagings, that how do we recycle them. When we speak about the deposit systems, then the legalization part is very, very important. The laws, how do you build this up? And of course, the non-profit principle is one of the key words also.
Thank you very much. Eliis, you want to?
I may be adding just that the system must be easily understandable to users, so it will to be efficient.
Yeah, it's the convenience question. Yes, it has to be easy to use without much thinking. If I have to put this or that in which bin,
yes,
that is always helping. That is always helping. Thank you very much. And Jack, what would you say?
Yeah, not too much to add from what's really been said, but I would say, first of all, prioritize prevention. Change the time and efforts you're spending on focusing on recycling or treatment to focus on reuse, and simply then creating a system that doesn't need plastic in the first place would be my first recommendation. Secondly, for municipalities and regions to do a sort of analysis, see what is possible within their powers, within their jurisdiction. Where can they partner with stakeholders to trial, pilot deposit return schemes? Can they sort of advocate and work with the national government for EPR? Can they sort of set up challenges, initiatives, economic incentives, all of this to really focus on waste prevention being the key? And then after those two, to implement sort of an effective collection system. So ensuring that households and businesses are separating as many waste streams as possible, plastics, organics. Of course, this will have a huge impact in reducing the residual waste that's sent for incineration and landfill. It will increase the quantity of recyclable materials that's collected and protect the quality of the recyclables. So therefore, it increases the likelihood that these items can be recycled in the future.
Thank you, and also for pointing out earlier, there is this huge connection between organics waste collection separately and plastic waste collection, so that to make it a better fraction that can be recycled. Thank you very much. And Gregoire, the last word is yours.
Thank you. I would say it's really important for people and companies to be accountable for what they are doing. For companies, I really like the way EPR schemes are working, because when you produce a waste, you need to pay for it. And so I think it's really important that the one who are producing the waste pay for it, and they will make them think differently about the way they produce it. And about consumers, it's about the same in France. We pay for taxes for collection of waste, but it's mixed with any other type of taxes. And so people don't know how much it costs them to produce waste. If they were to know how much it costs them to produce waste, they will try to buy bulk products more, and they will try to sort things better, because they will see it has a positive impact on the cost of collecting waste. So there are a few examples of experiments about paying for what you produce in terms of waste, and I think it's a really good example to make people accountable and
Thank you very much. In the energy sector, you would say it's the polluter pays principle. So yes, here we go. Very good as a closing word as well. Well, I would like to, first of all, thank our speakers for your extremely interesting presentations and for answering all the questions. Well, as we said, what we have not answered now, we will try to answer later in writing. I would heartily invite all of you to come to our next webinars next week, and you will find the links already for registration in the chat. Next week, we will talk about that's on the 10th of February. On the 17th of February, we will talk about construction and demolition waste. So be with us again. And if you're interested also in other subjects, please do let us know. You will see a survey popping up when you're closing the Zoom session. And there is the possibility to give us feedback. And secondly, also the possibility to tell us what are future subjects which you would like to tackle or which you would like to hear about. So thank you very much again to our speakers, to my colleagues, to Magda, to Lotte also for helping, for posting all these interesting links in the chat. And we will make sure that you get the recordings and follow-up article and all the presentations and links as soon as possible. So hope to see you soon next week. And thank you very much for this really interesting webinar on plastics waste. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.